was a blank space. This office was just completely empty. But I saw that vision, and that's where things started with my idea and vision for this space. And those moments of hardship and the embezzlement and my wife being diagnosed, they cause you to really think about your life and what you're doing with yourself. And do I want my work and career to just be something that I do to make income to support my family? Or do you really want to enjoy what you do and have it be something that when you look back on your life, you're like, you know what, I'm glad I did this. And those moments definitely is what led me to here.
Albert Einstein said, "Don't think about why you question, simply don't stop questioning." Welcome to Curated Questions. I am your host, Ken Woodward. And these questions are not mathematical equations, but rather a resource to encounter personal reflection and growth. As Tupac Shakur stated, even the genius asks questions. Now, let's engage the questioning community. Dr. Ernest Ponraj, a native of Montgomery County, Maryland, pursued his undergraduate studies at Pacific Union College in California before earning his doctorate of dental surgery from Loma Linda University in 2008. After obtaining his DDS license, he returned to Maryland and has since been a practicing dentist, serving the communities of Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. In October 2014, Dr. Ponraj embarked on his journey as a practice owner by taking over a retiring dentist practice in both Silver Spring and Gaithersburg, Maryland. Over the past decade, he has modernized and expanded his skills at these locations, culminating in his move to the Technē, spelled T-E-C-H-N-E, dental office in Rockville, Maryland. He is committed to ensuring his practice meets his highest standards of dental care. This is where a twist you didn't see coming is revealed. Dr. Ponraj, who prefers to go by Ernest, is also an artist. He opened his new office last year as a culmination of a working dental office and, get this, an art gallery. Yeah, I know, this hurt my brain as well. I was confident that whoever was behind this operation had a story that included questions. After we finished our engaging conversation in his office, Ernest gave me a tour of the gallery to gain a better appreciation of what he has built. This video of the tour will be available on the Curated Questions YouTube channel, allowing you to see Ernest's space and artwork for yourself. I kept the audio of the tour in this podcast as an experiment. A couple of episodes ago, author Jeff Wetzler described the importance of deep listening, as it may reveal things you might overlook in a video. This is an opportunity to test your listening skills and then head over and watch the video clip to see how your imagination filled in the story. As always, there are my detailed takeaways included at the end. Now, on to the show. Ernest, welcome to Curated Questions.
Thank you. Nice to meet you officially in person.
Actually, to that point, this is my first in-person conversation for Curated Questions, so milestone moment for me as well. So
Appreciate
you
it.
for that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, I always like to start with the question of when did you first understand the power of questions, just to understand a little bit of what the backstory is.
Yeah, so with questions, if I think about what questions mean to me, the first thing that comes to my mind, actually, and it's interesting, the profession that I'm in, which is dentistry, the first thing that I actually think about when I think about questions and how I started viewing questions was actually fear and anxiety, which that's kind of what people normally see when they see dentistry is fear and anxiety. And growing up with questions, it was always something that I was nervous. Somebody asking me a question, I'm always nervous, like, am I giving the right answer, or does this make sense? And it always brought about this, knowing that I'm going to be asked a question, kind of fear and anxiety. Growing up, that kind of, if someone was going to ask me questions, I would be like nervous about it. I would say that kind of continued on throughout in my studies. We're asked these questions, and it's tests that have questions, and you're like, do I know how to answer these? You're taking these big tests all throughout school.
Right.
And they're not like easy questions. You don't know how to answer them. So you're like nervous, and you're like, did I answer these right? Did I do well enough on this test? But it's not until after I finished all my schooling and as my profession grew, I realized like questions, especially if I'm the one asking them to other people, are a very powerful tool to learn from them and also connect with people. And I would say the person that I just felt the most was my wife to be. When I met her, I asked her a lot of questions because it just felt like I could get such a better understanding of her by asking about her. And I'm the youngest of three, and my whole life I'm the baby of the family. So everybody's been taking care of me my whole life, and I've lived my whole life that way, about everybody attending to me, me being the center of things. But when you're asking questions to other people, you're making them kind of the focus. And so when I met my wife, like realizing that I could connect with her in a different way by asking her different questions really made me realize the power that I have in asking other people questions, and not necessarily like a fear that I have to answer something like a question, but more just I can actually empower somebody else or give somebody else, make them feel comfortable by asking them a question in a certain way, or really just connecting with the person. So that's when I would say I really understood the power that I have in asking questions to other people. And I would probably say it was maybe in my mid or late 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where that took me after that, in my interaction with questions, there were other moments that brought different things into my life, and it put me on the path where I am today.
That's a cool story. That transition for you of fearing questions, because I get it. I'm like, give me the easy multiple question, multiple choice to questions.
Yeah.
Going through all the school to be a dentist, no doubt. You had a lot of hard questions, and rightfully so, because we want people to be skilled. But then making that transition with your now wife, and that process of getting to know her and really seeing the value, and it was through connection.
Yeah.
And really wanting to know, and that curiosity, that was a point that was pivotal for you to appreciate the power.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. And so do you find that even today you're more curious with your wife in asking questions? Do you find it easy to engage with your wife with questions?
You know, it is interesting because we've been married 15 years now. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, it was 15 years. And
congratulations.
Thank you. It fluctuates. You go through all these ups and downs, and having kids now, you have to set aside those times. By default, I go back into like considering myself more so about things. And I really have to focus on really wanting to find out about somebody else. And I would say not just with my wife, but just anyone in general, whether it's new people I come into contact with. I have to consciously realize it's not just about me. I want to know about them, and we have this back and forth. Like a lot of people, it's easy to tell about yourself and explain yourself, but wanting to get to know other people, questions, I feel like, is just the more questions you ask somebody, the more they will open themselves up to you, you know? And so I realize how powerful a tool that is, not just with my wife, but other people I come into contact, whether it's patients, yourself, anybody that I meet. The more I can engage with them and ask them about their position, it brings a stronger connection, you know?
So the curiosity about others, have you always had that? What does that story look like for you?
Yeah, I was the youngest of the family. And in my particular culture too, it's very family oriented. Your parents take care of you like your whole life. You're kind of babied. And it's not until I started living on my own, went out and did things on my own, that I realized, oh, I'm not the center of the world, you know, like,
what?
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah. So you learn that, but by default, my whole childhood and growing up, I've been taking care of And now it's nice to be able to talk to somebody else and get to know them genuinely. Sometimes I feel like I'm being like superficial, but when I have a genuine interest in somebody or something, and I really am like wanting to know about it, whether it be a specific artist or just anybody that I interact with, like really asking them questions about what makes them, it is something that has gotten me more interested in learning about others.
And I'm sure we'll talk about this, but to your point on getting to know patients and the like would be, it seems to me to be a helpful tool or skill. All right. So my origin story here with learning about you is that I was in your building around the corner visiting my chiropractor. Shout out to Dr. Shirley Powell. And I came around the corner to use the restroom, and there's a sign in the hallway saying a dental practice and art gallery. So significant cognitive dissonance hit me. I have never seen anything like this at all. Yeah. When I walked into the space, you have an amazing gallery here of both your own and remarkable other artists. There was immediate curiosity on my side, just because I had never seen anyone, what I was assuming was mashing together two passions in such a creative way that you did. So if we can use that positioning as kind of, maybe if you can tell some of the story of how you've got this beautiful space here, and a little bit of what that story looks like.
Yeah, definitely. My dental background and dental journey started about 10 years ago when I took over practice, and I was about to have a daughter at this time. My wife was pregnant, and it was my oldest daughter, and I took over this practice, and it was my first delve into being a practice owner, business owner. And it was a scary moment. Is all these things happening in my life, and I just went into it. I jumped into it. I was like, I'm ready to own a practice. And I learned a lot those first couple of years. It was about 4 years into that, and I was doing well as a dentist. I was growing the practice, and I came into opportunity with another office. And it was funny, my second child was about to be born. So I remember how these practices came about based on when my kids were born. But I was like, you know what, I've done it before. It's, how hard could it be? I took over. So I was like, let me jump into owning a second office. So I did that. And that practice was completely different. And that first year there, I realized I have so much to learn about dentistry. And what kind of led me down the beginnings of where I am now is there was a moment about a year into owning that second practice that there was a major embezzlement happening. And at that time, when that happened, I had a major amount of questions going on. I'm like, how could I let this happen? I had all these questions in my head. And I was like, I'm not in the right place, like doing what I need to do. That's when I actually reached out to a coach. And I was like, because obviously I'm not doing something right, that this could happen for it was happening for about 10 months while I was doing things. And I was in just shock and disbelief. It was like a moment of like, is this really happening? All these doubts and am I doing the right thing?
Wow.
And from that moment on, having that coach lead me, I made so many different decisions with my dental path. I was able to stabilize my dental career. And for the next maybe 2 to 3 years after that, I really grew my practice and built my team to a way that I was really happy with. And then COVID comes, and I'm like, I chose the wrong career. I do a career that I can't practice for a couple months. And so at that time, I had to basically start from scratch again. A lot of staff, they couldn't be in the same field, so they moved, and I basically had to hit a reset button on both my practices. But it was about 3 years ago, and it was about to be my 40th birthday, I vividly remember this because when I think about life-changing moments, it was one of them. So, practice slowly started coming back after COVID, and I had some family visiting, and this family was my cousin and her husband. That they're very supportive. They knew I did artwork, and they knew that that was a kind of passion of mine. And during their time visiting here, there was some news with my wife. She had some medical concerns, and during that time, it was right before Thanksgiving time, and I was about to turn 40. My wife found out that she was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 2 breast cancer. And she had to go through chemo, all these different things. But my cousins that were here, they knew I was doing my dentistry, and they were like, you know what, you should show your art, have a dental office and a art space. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that would be nice to do, but like, how can you really do that? In my head, I was thinking that. But with everything happening with my wife, I was really just like at a point where I was like, I either just continue along how I've been doing things, or really try to do maybe something different.
Yeah.
And I would say it was a life-changing moment for me to like decide, you know what, I want to just go for it. I only have one chance to do this. About 2.5 years, I found this space. And as soon as I came in space, I was like, you know what, this is perfect. I saw the vision of like, I can make this an art space and still do my dental.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I spent all my kind of effort and time into creating this space. And it was a blank space. This office was just completely empty. But I saw that vision. And that's kind of where things were started, with kind of my idea and vision for this space. And so those moments of like hardship and like the embezzlement that happened and my wife being diagnosed, they cause you to really think about your life and like what you're doing with yourself. And do I want my work and career to just be something that I do to make income to support my family? Or do you really want to enjoy what you do and have it be something that when you look back on your life, you're like, you know what, I'm glad I did this. And those moments definitely is what led me to here.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here, I'm like, where do I go from here now? And I have a lot of ideas, brainstorming and like writing things down. My coach, he has helped me through this process, and like having this fusion between dental and my art. I feel so happy every time I come here to work. And when I get engagement from patients and even yourself, like that's what it's all about. That's what my purpose was for all this, like to engage with the community, to provide a space that whether some patients, they love just having art. It relieves some of their anxiety coming to the dental office. Some patients, they just want to see the art. And I'm like, yeah, come anytime. You don't need to come see me. I know that my work might not, be, give you that like anxiety. So, I have these goals that I have written down in terms of community, long-term goals. But in terms of the art, I didn't want to set like, oh, this is what I want it to be. It's open, and I'm interested to see where this is going to go. But that's the backstory with how I got here.
Cool. All right. So this is going to be fun to dive into a bunch of those different aspects. But first off, how is your wife doing?
She's fine. Nothing more, no more cancer.
She came through. Okay.
Yeah, she came through. Obviously, she has to take medication, but she's on the other side of it. I don't think it's something that ever really completely leaves.
Yeah.
But she's in a good place. And
healthy, and or as healthy as she can be and such. So
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a beautiful. I'm glad that that's the situation. Yeah. So as we take some of these different pieces here, let's talk about your patients and the feedback that you've had regarding the art affecting your patients. What has been some of that experience been like? Yeah.
So a lot of my patients, especially the ones that I've been with the past 10 years, a lot of them didn't know that I did this. Or at my previous office, I hung a few pictures, but nothing to this effect. And so they're like, I had no idea you did this. And like, I've had such good feedback with patients being like, why are you a dentist? You're an artist. So, but in terms of the art part of things, I did a lot of art, but I realized I couldn't make it my career. I got burnt out doing a lot of art when I was in school.
Okay.
And I knew at that time, like, I didn't want art to be my profession, like job. I didn't want to be an artist. I love doing it as a hobby. Mm-hmm. And all the work that I've done here, it's all been just as a hobby. Most of it was done like when I was in school or before, and it brings me joy. It's a passion of mine. But for me, I've always separated kind of like my work, my day-to-day work. And I've actually grown to love to do dentistry more as an art form. And with my patients, I actually want to learn more about dentistry to provide them with the best possible care they can have. It's weird because I had such a focus on creating this art space. I feel like maybe I was not as focused on like learning more about dentistry, but after creating this space and like having the space, my mind, I'm fully on board. I want to learn as much about dentistry as possible now. Like that's really where I'm excited about it. And so as a provider, you just want to be able to answer all their questions and give them the best possible options to make their decision. Like give them all the knowledge that they can make their decisions with. But with the feedback as an artist, some patients do like that I like to work with my hands. They can see some of the things that I do. And I had one patient who, because as an artist, I'm a technical artist. I like to do all these tedious processing, and they're like, oh, we love that you're our dentist. You like to do all these little things, and we know you're going to take care of our teeth because you're so focused on these different things.
On the details, the little details.
On the details, exactly.
Yeah. Huh. The renewed passion for dentistry, are you seeing that as an extension of art? Is that maybe a new expression, perhaps?
Yeah, for me, it's like, I like to set my goals, right? And then once you reach a goal, it's like, where do you go from there? And so I think I had this goal of this practice. And after I met that goal, it's like, where do I go from here? And for me, it's like, I know I'm going to be practicing for probably the next 10 to 15 years. And I want to provide the best possible care. It's like setting that new goal. And so I think that's where my kind of renewed passion for like learning about dentistry has come from, is that I want anybody that steps in here to appreciate the art, but also know that they're getting quality dental care.
Absolutely. You touched on it a little bit. I'm thinking that the space could help folks relax a little bit into the uncertainty of dentistry, or the ideas anyway that, you know, whether we've seen it in the movies or it's been the personal experience of some of the fear. I'm assuming that this could serve some folks as far as being able to kind of bring down some of the anxiety a little bit. Have you found that to be the case?
Yeah, I've actually looked into more about using art as a way to calm patients down. And there are places that like do art therapy, and I'm learning a little bit more about that. I would say do that here, but it's always an interest to me if that would be a tool or method to alleviate anxiety. I think it would be great. My kind of vision for the space and kind of moving forward is, right now I have my stuff in the front as like the featured artist, but I want to change this every maybe year, and have other local artists or people that would want to collaborate with me to use the space to help the local community, whether it be patients of mine or just, you know, I would love to just see where it goes. I'm not like tied to doing one specific thing with it. So collaborating and helping the local community is a major goal of this practice in this space.
Yeah.
I feel like the first 6 months here, it's just been like stabilizing, just getting used to doing things here. But I definitely want to connect more with the community here and just have this be a space where people know they can feel comfortable.
So for your art, you had mentioned that this was through your youth. What's some of that story?
I have two older brothers. They're both medical doctors, and I started my college as a pre-med student. And from talking to them, they actually kind of, not convinced me, but they told me, you're going to be getting a lot of this school when you're in medical school. They're like, when you're in college, do something you really like want to do and learn. And I started doing pre-med, and I did actually engineering. And I saw a couple of friends who did artwork, and I was like, you know what, that looks so fun. Like, I want to do it. Took some classes, and I was like, maybe I want to do this as a career. So I started maybe doing graphic design, architecture. But I realized in that process, like I loved doing it, but I didn't want to make it my career. And I liked connecting with people. And I feel like dentistry and my personality, I shadowed some dentists. I was like, this is really like, I work with my hands and I connect with people. And I decided to become an art major, but still took the classes I needed to become a dentist. And I was happy that I was an art major, but, and I had at some point in my early days, like thought about like maybe doing art as like a way to generate income, like selling pieces here and there. But I realized I didn't really want to do that. I just love to do it as like a hobby.
Yeah.
Which now it's interesting because I loved my art history classes and learning about artists. And that's where my renewed passion for art and like, I've loved like just collecting and learning about different artists. Like it's an interesting world, the art world. And anytime we go to places, I love seeing the art throughout the city, through museums and that sort of thing. So I still have a passion for art and it does bring me joy. And so finding a way to connect that with my profession was something I was like, can I make this happen? And I feel like I was able to do that here. And so that's how I was able to fuse those things together.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's dive in a little bit deeper on that. Because the merging of these two ideas or these two parts of you, a reason to me that it was so shocking was that most of the time that I've heard stories of somebody that's a professional in one thing and they love art, they won't necessarily bring them into the same space, right? Because I'm a philanthropist and I'll have art in my house, but you taking the very real step of merging these things in such a public way and such an accessible way, what were some of the questions you were working through, whether it was can I really make this happen?
Yeah.
Right? What will people think? And what did that look like?
When it came to this space and deciding how to put the art or what art do I put here and which artist do I want, I realized I became ultra focused on that. And I was like, I want to create these themed rooms. I want to create these little areas where people would like really love to see. And it's interesting to, when you finally do it, because I spent so much time like putting pieces in a specific way. What people finally do when you open the space up and they come in, they always respond differently than what you think. And there are some people who really like are deep into the art, who like will look at every piece and like maybe read some of the things. But then there's also people who they're just like, oh, that's cool. They don't even know who did it or like I did it. It's so interesting because I'm spending all this time like thinking, oh, I have to make this perfect because they're going to see this and they're going to want to do this. And it's usually not people, they don't give you that same response that you initially think they will. And I think that's part of me as a dentist too, that my mind's always thinking about things in detail. And sometimes it's like people, they don't need all that detail. They just want to just have like a surface thing. And, it's changed like how I was like, you know what, I spent so much time on some of these things and like maybe I shouldn't have spent so much time on this because people don't really know this. But every time I do get like, sometimes there'll be one person who really wants to know. And I love it. I want to give them a tour of the whole space, tell them the background about every little thing.
Yeah.
And even if it's a couple people that do that, I realize like, you know what, I'm happy I did this.
Yeah. To me, it's if it brought you joy,
Yeah.
then that's a win in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly.
As you look around and you're like, there's a whole backstory as to why that particular picture is right there because of what's next to it.
Yeah.
And thinking through that, then that's an expression of who you are
definitely.
as well. And that can be celebrated. Yeah. Now, if there was not so much advice, but how would you encourage others to think about perhaps merging areas of their life that others may not understand?
When I think about art, obviously there's physical art, but there's also different arts, or like music is a form of art, or even acting or dance. There's like a lot of different forms of art. I know in some cultures it's looked down upon in terms of like, you want to do that for your work, you want to do that as a career, you can't make any money from that, or you can't support things. And it's looked at that. And so coming from that background, there were times when I was an art major, I would talk to my folks and be like, you know what, I just think I want to just be an artist. I don't want to do anything. And I knew in their head, they were like, what, man, like a child is not good.
How have we gone wrong?
Yeah. And I think everybody should always have a passion or a hobby that is maybe outside of their work, or being able to bring it together has been like, I'm glad I was able to do that. I know some people aren't able to do that, but I would never want somebody to feel that passion or that art or that hobby die because of their day-to-day just doing it. Like, it's always sad to me to see that, or sometimes I think I'm like, oh, I didn't do this because I just got too busy with life. And that's where I would say to always keep those things relevant, because it makes you more whole as a person, not to just be so focused on like your day-to-day work. Like having a hobby or passion, whether it be art, whether it be something else, there's so many different things, and there's so many ways to bring meaning to life and to share with others. It's interesting. Even myself, I want to learn more about people's, what brings joy to them, and like things they do as a hobby. Yeah. For example, even yourself, I love that you have this whole project about questions, and I'm sure there's some sort of journey. I want to know your story a little more. It's interesting to me, and I think it just gives like more depth and meaning about every person when they have this other part of them that you don't always see initially when you just interact with them on the surface. Like my patient said, oh, I never know you did this. Everybody has this about themselves that people don't know, and the more they can share that, it just brings more meaning to them and people as humanity.
Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, she's got a famous TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story. Yeah. And I think of that often, just because we see someone and we're like, oh, you're a dentist, or you're this. And we're less inclined to open up the aperture and see the full humanity of who folks are. Yeah. And so it gives an opportunity to be curious and to understand the dynamics that much bigger of the whole story. Yeah. Yeah. What did the growing up experience regarding questions that your parents encourage you on in the world of questions, what was that like for you?
Questioning, I mean, it's every person, they do this, right? When they're growing up, they're questioning about why things happen, how things happen. And my folks, they believed a certain thing, and we were raised very like strict, conservative. And sometimes questioning was like, why are you questioning this is like a thing. Yeah. But as I got older and I learned more about things and different people, especially I went to denominational school all through college, and we're in this little bubble. But until you look outside and ask questions outside, you're just contained here. You don't get to see as much. Growing up, I was able to travel, which seeing other places and cultures and they do things differently, you have all these questions about why is this place like this and myself. And it's one of the things that I've actually had more of an interest in lately is connecting with where my folks are from, which is India. And just the poverty and things there, it's like a different kind of mindset. I would never have known if I didn't go there and see that. It makes you appreciate what you have here. But when you go to places like that, I've done these dental mission work and like dental clinics, but you're helping them on the surface level, but they're really changing you more. Like you're the one that's actually like getting more out of it because they're so happy just with the bare necessities. And you start to question yourself. You're like, I have all these things and I'm not happy. For me, like even as a dentist and being able to provide things, I've always thought about, this is where my parents came from, and my father, their village, it's so poor.
Yeah.
And so I always have thought in my head, like, how can I contribute to give back to them? And while I also want to do that locally, I want to do that. It's something that I ultimately want to leave behind me, is not just this space, but like using this space to help other people. Yeah.
No doubt in our wealth that we have in America is, we get a chance to, I mean, there's poverty within America, but really getting to connect with people, seeing who they are, what life looks like, and then being able to carry that back with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt would be powerful. Now, do you get a chance to get back to India regularly to meet extended family?
So my father still has a place there where not really, no immediate family there.
Okay.
All kind of passed away, but there's a school nearby that I went about a year and a half ago with my family for the first time. My kids, it was their first time. I went a lot when I was little. I used to go every year almost, every 2 years or so. And so it was so interesting. It was like my future and my past all connecting and merging as one. And it was amazing. I mean, I wanted to have my kids experience that. And it was interesting to view that, but then also my folks came with us too. So it was like, it kind of brought back memories when I was a child too. But it was just interesting. It was kind of like surreal to me, some of the moments I had on that trip, just looking at from the lens of my kids as well as myself.
What do you think were some of the things that really stuck with your kids out of that?
I started doing this travel journal when I went on this trip because it was really just like a powerful trip to me. But I had my daughter do it too. And she's at that time maybe around 8 or 9. So she started doing that. And it's funny because ever since then, like now, anytime we go on any trip, she has this travel journal. She writes down stuff.
Nice.
And it's so interesting to hear, like, I look back on what she I didn't do it as consistent as I was supposed to. She does it every single time we go on a trip. She writes down at the end of the night. She wants to write down all the things she did, everything she did. So after we came back, I looked through it and I was so interested to just see what brought her joy and like what she was excited about.
Kind of what stood out to her and such.
Yeah.
And
it was just like little things that I didn't even think was, I was like, oh, that was what made you happy to stay. So,
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's neat.
Yeah.
So are there any particular questions that you've carried with you, whether it's through seasons or that you come back to?
There are, in terms of my refocused, renewed kind of interest in dentistry, like there are questions that like I don't realize sometimes I need to ask patients or people. And I've learned through my coach and mentors that the type of questions or how you ask questions, sometimes you get like a specific answer, and like learning how to rephrase your questions or ask your question in a different way leaves it open-ended, that it will have patients tell you a little more or open up a little more and get a better understanding. And I'm still learning how to ask questions better. Sometimes I just ask direct questions, but I realize I need to ask more open-ended questions that gives the person a chance to tell you a little more about themselves or about what's happening. And so I do struggle with just asking like the surface question. There are a lot of questions or things that people are just used to asking. Like when you go to the dentist, like the dentist asks you how many times do you floss a day, or these just generic questions. You always like kind of know these things are happening, but sometimes wanting to ask a question a different way, or asking somebody if they're happy with their smile or happy about showing their teeth, or just asking them in a way that like makes them value what they have with their oral health or smile. Like I didn't realize how much smile can sometimes change a person's like just everything that they do. It's not just fixing like necessarily a tooth, but you're also helping the person. Some people, they don't necessarily want that. They just want you to do the basics, do everything. But there are people that they've been living with something their whole life just because they don't have the opportunity to fix or improve this. And so being able to provide that, it feels like it's a service that I can do to help them. And service, it's the motto of like, and there's art pieces that kind of represent this, but it's really, I want to make sure that I'm a servant to the community, servant to my patients.
It certainly seems that that is a theme, as you've been telling the story, where being able to come back to community. How can I serve the community? In having the gallery, yes, it's for you, but it's also for the community. It's lovely to see that that is such a motivation for you in doing the work that you're doing and how you show up in the world.
With the space, I remember when I was growing up and I used to do some artwork, I was like, you know, maybe like I could go to this restaurant and see if I could put my artwork up here. Or I would love for local artists or have this space be a place where they could display it. Because, you know, I see maybe 20 to 30 people every day that come through here, and if they're waiting, they can look at the art. And so it's a place where I would want kids who maybe don't have that availability, or a local artist that doesn't have that exposure, be able to share their story, share their art with my patients. And that's where I want to go with that aspect of it. Right now I have my stuff there, but I'm going to be taking it down and changing it. So
kind of rotating through.
Yeah.
Any particular questions for you that just refuse to be answered?
I would say for me, it's always like the how question, how to make things happen, like how to go from point A to point B. I would say that's probably the most difficult thing. Like I have all these ideas of where I want this practice to go, but how to get there, that's what I probably struggle with the most. Yeah.
Is there a particular issue that comes to mind at the moment that you're like, okay, what is your current how?
Yeah. So I would say my current how is definitely, how can I get this space like for people to see? You happen to walk into this building. How do I even let my neighbors right here know that we have this space here? How do I promote this space? Let's say I wanted to go to a local school and see like art students there. I've tried to create some more space and time to be able to do those things and actually just go myself, go around, let people know, oh, we have this space, you should come check it out, or really just promote and market. And I never have enough time. And I don't want to sacrifice other things like family and my work. And I'm the type of person who, if I didn't have to sleep, I wouldn't sleep. I just want to keep doing stuff. And I feel like there's never enough hours in the day to do everything I want to do. And as a business owner and learning how to like manage, and it takes, I can't do everything myself.
Yeah.
You know, you need help.
Right.
And so putting together the right team and finding people that can help, that see the same vision that you have, and giving them like direction and guidance, it's a challenging thing. And I'm learning how to be better at that. Ultimately, I would love a lot of people in the local area to just know about this space. Even if they came in, not even as a patient, I don't really need like more patients. I've been pretty busy, but just come take a look and then go
Appreciate what's here. And
Yeah.
Excellent. You may have covered this, but I'd like to ask this question of what is your right now question? This is somewhere between what's for lunch, and if I'm going to get married, the question that you're carrying now. Does anything fall into that category other than what you just covered down on?
Like, I would say the question I'm trying to figure out right now is how to balance the dental aspect of things, is in terms of doing my day-to-day work, seeing my patients, that sort of thing, but not sacrifice like my ultimate long-term goal with this space, which is the community and the art. Being able to do both. As we've gotten really busy these first couple of months here, and I feel like the dental has piled up. Like, I'm so focused on the dental now. I haven't had the space to really do anything with the art.
Gotcha.
And so I don't think it's going to slow down. Like, I think it's just going to continue, but I have to figure out a balance. I know that ultimately I will, but in the now, I'm trying to stabilize the dental so I can do a little bit more with the art, but then not do too much with the art.
Right.
So I can
Yeah.
still,
Apart from the very important family love, you have these two loves.
Yeah.
The dentistry and the art, not just even doing the art, but celebrating the artists and the community and all those elements that you want to do. Yeah. It's a beautiful tension.
Yeah.
Is that they'll continue to pull for resources of time and creativity and energy as you're going forward here.
Definitely.
Wow.
Definitely.
Wow. Cool. All right. So I know that we're going to do a little bit of a tour here, but any other things about questions that we hadn't covered down on that, as you were thinking about the conversation, anything that we didn't touch on?
With questions and in terms of dentistry or patient interaction, almost every patient that comes in here, I really want to know what they're thinking. Like, if I could ask a question to every patient, I would ask them, what would make you walk out of this place and want to tell somebody that was the best experience I ever had? My coach tells me this. That's what you want. You want somebody to walk out and say, you know, that was an experience that I remember and I want to share with somebody because it was a meaningful experience. With different patients, it could be different things, but some patients, they may not come out with a great experience if they've had like a tooth removed or something. But that's always a goal of mine, to make sure that a patient walks out and feel like that experience was something that I've never experienced before. And so wanting to know what would create that, what would give that patient that feeling, that's what I want to know from that's the question I have for all my patients, is what would make this experience a memorable one for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way of setting that intention.
Yeah.
And setting that bar that says, hey, we're here to do good stuff.
Yeah.
How can we achieve that? That's what I'm here to do, is to once again serve, which comes back to you serving the community and your patients as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. For those that would love to learn more about what you're doing, where's the best place for folks to catch up with you?
So we have our website and we do social media, but the name of our practice is Technē Dental Gallery. TechneDentalGallery.com is our website. And Technē, it's a Greek word and it means art, craft, and skill. Right? That's kind of like surface meaning. And, you know, dentistry is kind of my craft, art is my passion, and they kind of merge together. So that's how we came up with the name for it. But Technē Dental Gallery, those are where you can find me on social media. And I do, even on social media, want to interact more. We do like giveaways and prizes, dental, as well as art. I do a little bit of both, but I've always wanted to give back. And so I know every year I'm going to be doing giveaways with dental work as well. Whether it's basic things like maybe a crown or bridge or like smile makeovers, I'm always going to be doing some charitable work there. So
just for the record, when you say something minor, basic, crown, okay, I'm thinking, you know, like fill a cavity kind of a thing. So you're very generous on what you consider the basic things. Yeah, so I'll absolutely link to everything in the show notes.
Okay.
Right, and all those different with your website and give some more of the background. But it's been a cool conversation.
Okay.
And I appreciate you taking the time to
Definitely.
share about your journey, how questions have played a role, and how you're seeking to care for the community. So that's a beautiful thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate it.
Cool. All right, so you up for a little bit of a walk route?
From what I've heard, you're a deep guy. You're a deep person. You're a deep thinker, deep, like, I can tell. So I can go into every one of these pieces as deep as you want or as surface as you want, but there are specific ones that have more meaning to me, a little bit more meaning to me. And some of it ties into my dentistry as well. We can go through and you can ask any questions about some of the art and like how they tie into what I do and why they mean certain things to me.
Okay. My thought is we'll need to do a shot of one of your spaces, one of the dental rooms.
Yeah.
So that way people can be like, oh, legit. This is
Yeah.
in this little tiny space, you get the magic of the art going on.
Yeah.
And then maybe if we highlight 3 or 4 different pieces
Okay.
that there's a story, and then I'll reserve one wild card where I'm like, wait a second, what's the story on this one?
Yeah.
But to me, I'd say let's celebrate. I chose this location because of this, and just do a deep dive on it. I'd say if we just got a sample of some of those different things.
I am in the process of having somebody video, and like sometimes you go to art museum, they have a virtual or like a video tour. I want to be able to have that if a patient wants to know more, they can basically click a link and it'll tell them a deeper dive. So we're going to be like creating that through like a video, kind of like a video tour.
Yeah.
For patients if they're interested or anybody that's interested. Okay. So
Cool.
let's just kind of start with each operatory. We actually have these little signs on them. They're themed. There's 6 of them total. And each one has a theme behind them. Flowers, photography, and we may change these out periodically, but all of these are things that I've collected. None of my art, they're just ones that I like. But I wanted to just really touch on, because we talked a little bit about service.
Yeah.
When you come to my office, we have these little like brochures. And this is one of the things that I kind of did, but I realized some people might be confused about it. We have a quote down here. And I put this quote down here because there's a specific artist who, when they do these large murals, they use these powerful quotes, like from Martin Luther King and different historical figures that give you more meaning behind their artwork. And this, I thought it would be cool to use an artist's quote that gave meaning to me in the practice.
Yeah.
So this specific artist, his name's El Mac, he has a picture which is right here. And this picture is, a lot of people think it's Jesus carrying a cross, but it's actually not. It's a laborer in Mexico carrying this, doing service. And when I first saw this picture, it was the one that I knew when I built this space, I had to have this to really define what my intentions of the whole space was.
Wow.
And the quote that's on here is, I was raised with the sort of philosophy of work where art making and creative labor can be a kind of prayer, where there can be beauty in striving to become better at whatever we do and in the giving of oneself and service to others. Love, beauty, and work can all be connected. And the artist's name is El Mac. But I realized when I put this on here, some people, they didn't know El Mac was, or they're like, are you El Mac? Is that your quote?
The question did flicker through my mind. I'm like, is this like his artist name?
Yeah. But this is actually a work by El Mac. It's called El Obrero, and it's a print. And he typically does large murals. There's actually a mural in Anacostia that he collaborated with the local artist from DC. I'm actually interested. He just recently posted it on his account. I want to go check it out. It's down,
Absolutely.
It's down in DC. He does huge murals.
Okay.
across the country. He's from LA, but when I was in school, he's always been a favorite artist of mine. So, that's kind of the meaning behind this one here.
That captures a lot of what you were talking about, of just who you are.
Yeah. When you come through the operatories, there's different themes. So the photography one to me is interesting because some people think photography is not a true form of art, or it's like you're just taking a picture, but I really appreciate photography. I don't do much of it myself. Okay. So these are actually friends of mine.
Nice. Okay.
They're not really technically like artists, but kind of fit with the color theme of this room. And I liked how these looked. But the one on the outside is a more well-known artist, and this one too. But all these ones right here are places that I've been to. And so they actually mean a little bit to me. So this one's Iceland, Alaska, Hawaii, and Arizona. So
love them.
Yeah.
I was an Arizona boy. I'm tracking. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you can come up to the front here. I don't know if you saw this when you came in, but there's this wall when you come in. And when we first decided to do this, I decided to do this EP3, that's my art name. People probably don't know about this, but these 3 letters were from the previous practice. It was called Belpre Dental, and I took the signs from the building and I just made it into the EP3.
Nice.
So it's actually the same signs. We put them on the wall here. They kind of light up. But all of these works are things I did growing up. This was probably one of my first drawings that I did when I was in high school. And, as people that come in here, I love local sports and local teams. So this wall has all these black and white pictures of people. And I wanted to do something cool that patients or anybody that comes here could interact with. So we had people come in during our opening, or anytime any patient comes in here, they want to leave a note or write something. And I actually want you to do this.
All right.
You can write something, anything you want to write. Kind of leave your mark here. And it's something that I can also look at. Sometimes I come here and look at it and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize this person left this message for me or said this. So it's always something that I feel like people like to interact with.
That's
art
cool.
Too, so
I'll
grab a pen for you here and I can record you doing
it. All right.
Too, if that's okay.
Sweet. Just of note here, we got Sean Taylor up here, and I know that his younger brother just made like the practice team or something like that anyway. So we'll see how that goes. But cheering as a local guy anyway, cheering for what's to come there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Yeah. Ready to get a pen.
Do you want to write in black or in white? It's not as much black space here, but you can do either one. Let me grab some. Okay. This is a white one.
All right. Yeah, I can do some white up there. I can reach up there.
Okay. Yeah. It's good if you can reach higher.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. There we go. Keep pursuing the questions.
All right. Nice.
There we go.
Thank you.
And there we go.
I did these each section has a little thing that I want the patient to interact with somehow.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of read each one. Some people do it, some people don't, but every one of these has a little bit of interactive piece with it. So if you ever have more time in here, you can kind of look at things.
I'll come back or spend a little bit more time. Yes.
But yeah, all these works are things that I've done more in my spare time or when I was in school.
Yeah. Is there stick pins? Is that right?
Yeah, they're basically like little fabric pins.
Yeah. Beautiful work, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'm going to go here. And all right, so these pieces over here.
So these are actually, when I was in college, it was my degree project as an art major.
Okay.
These are cities. And I always do this. This is like one of the interactive things I have here. So each one, I went to the city and I took different photos throughout the city. So there's 6 different cities here. And I always have patients or people try to guess. They can guess all the cities.
Okay.
All right, so we'll give the first one up here.
Yeah, there's little clues in each one, but
Number one, and we're not giving any answers here.
No,
so this way, you got to figure it out, or go on the website and engage. There you go.
I went to school on the West Coast, so there's some on the West Coast, some on the East Coast, but people that are from those areas tend to get those ones a lot quicker, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's one in particular that I nailed, but I got it. And so was the inspiration for these, was that in the time that you spent, would you just go for, was it like a weekend type thing?
I
in
would
some
just go
cases?
for like a day or two. Yeah.
Okay.
And I compiled a bunch of photos,
Yeah.
and with those photos, I put together kind of like a collage of my visit to the city.
Yeah.
And so with that collage of images, I did like a little sketch, and then with that sketch, I translated it into like a bigger piece. But yeah, I mean, sports is a huge part of my
Indeed.
yeah. And so with a lot of my art, there's sports involved, and we're actually going to be doing a show probably at the end of the year, like a closing show that I have and we'll see, time permitting. I have 3 pieces that I'm trying to work on, and we're going to unveil them during that. So the big one I'm doing, he's the new local star here, is the Jaden Daniels one. So I'm working on that, and we'll see how that comes along here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So amongst doing all of this other, between the practice, between the gallery, you're also still creating.
Yeah. When I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being able to slip that in doing your creating, in making your art. What does that do for you?
Oh, I mean, it's such a satisfying feeling to finish a piece. I mean, I would say it's similar as I do dental work too, like seeing the full smile of a patient when I'm finally done with it. It's like, that's like a joy that I can't describe. Like finishing something or like completing a piece.
Yeah.
Especially when I can envision how the finals is going to look, because there are times in the beginning that I started and I'm like, oh, it's coming out a little different. But when I see that end result and I know, then you can't get me to stop working on it. I see the end result and I'm like super focused. I'm like going to finish it. So.
I know that you've also got some other artists in here,
Yeah.
or emerging artists.
Yeah.
What would be an example to highlight for that?
Yeah. Most of these are from either galleries I've been to, or I would say more maybe well-known artists. But this artist, and some of these artists I haven't really met a lot of artists, but this specific artist, these are one of the earlier ones I did. This whole wall, I wanted to do a theme of line art, but he's actually from DC, but he, I think, lives in Houston now.
Okay.
But he is a very he has a deep meaning with a lot of his pieces, and these are prints, but he does a lot of line art, and there's 3 of them in here that tie in together. But I'm interested to know more about his story and background. I've reached out to a few local artists, and it's interesting, some patients, I didn't realize they did art, and they told me they left their information for me. And so I have a few people in mind for the first show here, and they're local. Everybody has a story behind their artwork, and it's always interesting to me to learn that and learn more about the artists and why they create stuff and that sort of thing.
For the 3 that you've got up here, what element is it that resonates with you?
So I like the black and white aspect of these 3. He had different ones as well. It's interesting. I've been learning a lot about art as I've been doing this process, and I've been seeing different galleries. But a lot of artists, when, let's say, they make a piece for somebody, or they make a piece, they'll write something on the back of the piece, either a meaning or something. And I have to remember, but on his website, he has these quotes or things that kind of mean different things about his pieces, and they're on the back of his artwork. They're just little phrases or little sayings that have a deeper meaning that it definitely brings more I think value to what you see. And there's this artist too. He wrote something about giraffes about the here, let me actually pull this up here so you can see what's behind it. You can see what he wrote here.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it reads, in some African stories and myths, the giraffe is seen as an otherworldly creature. In these stories, it is often seen as a messenger between the divine realms and earth. Enjoy your painting. You are loved.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool. Well, let me do a walkabout in here, and then
This is the portrait room, and my actually favorite classic painter is Salvador Dali. So on the outside of this wall, it's a picture of Dali, but it's painted by somebody else, another artist. But he's probably like my favorite, let's say like a huge artist that everybody knows about, like Dali.
yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being a part of the Curated Questions family, my friend. This has been
Appreciate it.
fantastic.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Thank you.
Ken here. I enjoyed this conversation with Ernest and hearing his unique journey that will no doubt inspire others to build a life that honors all of their talents. These are 4 takeaways I captured. What else did you catch? Number 1. From fear-based questioning to connection-centered inquiry. Ernest's relationship with questions evolved from childhood anxiety about being asked questions, worrying if he had the correct answers, to discovering their power for genuine connection when courting his future wife. This transformation from being the questioned to becoming the questioner shifted his focus from self-protection to curiosity about others, moving him from the center of attention to making others feel valued and heard. Question: how might your own relationship with questions, whether asking or answering them, be limiting your ability to connect authentically with others? Number 2. Crisis as the catalyst for authentic integration. The convergence of major life challenges, embezzlement, COVID's practice shutdown, his wife's cancer diagnosis, and approaching his 40th birthday, created the perfect storm that pushed Ernest to stop separating his passions. Rather than keeping art as a private hobby and dentistry as mere income, these crises forced him to ask whether he wanted work to just support his family or to be something he'd look back on with satisfaction. Question: what crisis or major life transition might be calling you to stop compartmentalizing different parts of yourself and instead integrate them into something more authentic and fulfilling? Number 3. The art of asking questions that unlock patient stories. Ernest discovered that moving from generic surface-level dental questions like, how often do you floss, to open-ended meaningful inquiries such as, what would make you walk out of here wanting to tell someone this was the best experience you've ever had, creates entirely different conversations. This shift from closed to open-ended questions doesn't just gather information. It invites patients to share their deeper concerns, hopes, and values around their oral health and smile. Question: what routine questions in your professional life could you redesign to move from information gathering to story inviting, creating space for deeper connection and understanding? Number 4. The universal hunger for seeing the whole humanity in others. Ernest's patients consistently express surprise at discovering his artistic side. I had no idea that you did this, illustrating what he calls the, quote, single story problem, how we reduce people to their professional roles. His integration of art into his dental practice creates opportunities for patients to see him as a complete person, which in turn invites them to share more of themselves. This mutual relation of hidden depths create richer, more meaningful relationships. Question: what hidden aspect of yourself, talents, passions, or experiences are you keeping separate from your professional identity, and how might sharing them create deeper connections with colleagues, clients, and patients? And that's it. I hope you enjoyed learning about how Ernest avoided compromise and brought together the things he loves, which he shares with his community. To those on the other side of the speaker, thank you for being here. Gratitude shout out to Beauty Pill for the show's music and producer Ben Ford for the technical help. This episode was recorded on Piscataway land. Please engage with this episode in some manner. Download, follow, save, like, share, or comment about something that resonated. This action ensures we are engaging the questioning community. So until next time, keep questioning.